All right, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Want to welcome you to TimeSolv's monthly Wednesday webinar. This is Scott Clayson, the Director of Marketing here at TimeSolv, and this is our monthly look at the tips and tricks to get the most out of TimeSolv. I'm going to wait another few minutes here as people start to trickle into the webinar, make sure everyone has the opportunity to jump in and be a part of this. So just a reminder, this is essentially, excuse me here, I'm going through my slides already. This is the opportunity to review the tip of the week's emails that we send out generally every Monday or Tuesday. They've been on Tuesdays more recently as our normal writer of our tip of the weeks is out on maternity leave. So the person picking up the slack is doing double duty, and perhaps that's part of the reason why you've been seeing some of the tip of the weeks coming out on Tuesdays instead of on the normal Mondays that we like to do. So no excuses, but that's part of the heads up as to why. All right, well, let's get started here. I am recording this. I will send out a recording to those who have attended so you can review at your leisure. And we will be taking questions. You should see at the bottom of the window that you're looking at a place where you can ask questions. There is a Q&A area. So if we get through something and I'm done with the topic and you have a question, that's the place where you can do it. I believe there's also, if I am correct, there should be a place where you could raise your hand basically to ask a question. So I'll keep my eye on that as well. And I do believe everyone should be able to see my screen right now. I am, you're looking at the slide of the Wednesday webinar. I'm still scarred from the webinar, maybe 3 months ago now, for those that attended then, that I forgot to share my screen for like the first 20 minutes of the webinar. I still have nightmares about that. So let's go ahead and get started as a few more people trickle into the webinar, but I do want to be timely with this for everyone who was here on time. So what we're going to cover today, there's 4 topics we're going to talk about. The first one might be a very obvious topic to you all and maybe be like, why are we even talking about this? We're talking about payments and the allocation of payments to invoices and why it's important. This comes up quite frequently, more frequently than we'd like, from customers who they may record payments in TimeSolv, but they never allocate those payments towards an invoice. Therefore, the invoices they send in TimeSolv are never marked as paid. So they never have a good record of what invoices are outstanding and what invoices have been paid. And for some of you that do the books at your firm, that might make you do a deep shudder. For anybody who's done accounting for any place of business, it'll make you do a little bit of a shudder. So we want to make sure you fully understand how you record payments in TimeSolv and allocate them to the invoices in TimeSolv. And all this information, as we know, can get pushed over into QuickBooks as well. But you can essentially run your entire accounts receivable through TimeSolv, while you can also have it done in QuickBooks, and QuickBooks is a fantastic accounting package. It also is very easy to run a report of your AR in TimeSolv and to track your AR in TimeSolv. So we'll talk about that. Then second topic is going to be on using the abbreviations feature in TimeSolv. And I'm hoping that everyone here is already somewhat familiar on how to use abbreviations when creating time entries and expense entries, and more importantly, where you can update, revise, and add new abbreviations, and perhaps something that maybe not as many people know about, and that is the ability to have abbreviations that are specific to professionals. So ones that only you have access to and aren't firm-wide abbreviations. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then a couple of updates that we want to talk about that came out just recently. One, it's important to understand what's happened if you use QuickBooks Online and have it synced and integrated with TimeSolv. There is an update that will impact what happens the next time you try to log into the sync tool. in TimeSolv, if you haven't tried so already. That was released right at the week of the 4th of July. I'm not sure the exact date. And it was something out of our control. It's something that QuickBooks changed in the way they authenticate integrators into QuickBooks Online. So I'll walk you through how that impacts you if you are a QuickBooks Online user. And then another feature that we just rolled out last week is we've introduced the ability to turn on two-factor authentication for your firm, for your account in TimeSolv. And we'll talk about what that looks like and what that means and so on as we get through this. I anticipate this whole webinar will probably only take maybe a half hour, so it might be a little bit shorter, as a couple of these topics are not ones that we have to do a really deep dive into the features and how they work. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and get started and talk about payments and allocation of payments. And I'm just going to walk through, as a refresher, hopefully for a lot of you, how you go about recording payments. There's a couple of places in TimeSolv in which you can record payments. Then we'll talk about, once that payment has been made, this is the step I think a lot of people potentially miss, which is why we get a lot of support calls, is the allocating of that payment to an invoice or across a number of invoices if you happen to be recording a payment for a client of yours in which you have multiple matters. You can record the payment to, you have to record the payment to a specific matter, but that does not hinder you in the ability to allocate a payment across multiple matters you might have, or in multiple invoices for multiple matters for the same client. And then we'll talk a little bit about accounts receivable. And there are some ways to use, and I think I've gone over this before in our in some of our webinars, how to use the sent invoices screen to essentially act as your running AR. I think it's a pretty nice, easy way to see what invoices have been paid and what invoices have not been paid. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me move over and get over into TimeSolv. I'm going to log into my account. And now that I'm logged in, let's talk about the places where you can record a payment. There are 3 places in which you can be in TimeSolv and get to where you need to be to record a payment. One is, and this is one that's maybe a little less known, if you're in the clients and matters area and you're looking in a specific matter, and hopefully I'm picking one that's correct, and I'm in a particular matter here, I can look at the invoices for the matter, and this will show you a list of the invoices that have been sent for this matter. It'll show you the amount, it'll show you the balance right here within the matter. You can click on this dollar icon and it's going to take you directly to the payment screen. So if you are somebody who's just in the habit of going through the client and matter area to view information, this is an area where you can click to record a payment. Okay. So I think a lot of people don't really always look under the invoices tab of a matter. This is a great little place where you can put in what the previous balance was. When you move over new clients, when you've just started with TimeSolv and you have to put in a previous balance. Also, it's important. It's a really nice place where you can see the work in progress, your WIP. This is essentially any and all outstanding time entries and expense entries that have not been placed on invoices yet. So this is the total balance that would be due. This is what you've actually invoiced, and so on. You can always do, a time entry search to find time entries that are specific to Smith versus Wesson and sort it by ones that have been paid or not paid. But this is another place where you can find that information. So that's place number 1 where you can start recording a payment on an invoice. The other place is under Invoices and the Sent Invoice screen. This is where you can see a list of all the sent invoices by whatever criteria you've used to search. And in this case, I'm looking for all invoices that I've sent since May 1st of this year. But you'll notice that as you're viewing this list of your sent invoices, there again is this payment icon. And this is going to take you directly again to our payment screen. Then the third way in which you can record a payment is directly under Payments and then Payments. And when you come to this page, this is where you'll actually record the type of payment that came in. The only difference between this and the other 2 that I just showed you is if you go and click on that dollar icon that I was showing you here and also under Clients and Matters, it's going to take you to the same screen, but it's already going to pre-populate the client and matter, since that's what you were looking at, a specific client and matter. So really that's the only difference between accessing this screen through those two methods or accessing it through directly from the payment screen. So here it's just very obvious. You're going to be making sure you have the date that you're recording the payment, the type of credit here. Is this a payment? Is this a credit memo? Or are you going to be writing off completely money from an invoice? Then you're going to be looking at the payment method, ACH, cash, check, credit card, other, PayPal, wire transfer, whatever it might be. Oftentimes, if you're recording it here, it's via check. If you are using, hopefully, if you are accepting credit card for payment, you are leveraging our client portal, in which we have set up with LawPay, and we're using LawPay to integrate, so that if that's the case, when the client makes that payment through our client portal using LawPay, and again, as a refresher, LawPay allows clients to pay both via ACH and via credit card. When the client does it through their client portal, then that payment is automatically recorded here and automatically allocated towards the invoice. So it allows a lot of this process to work for you if you're using our client portal. Now that's a webinar for a different day, but just be aware that it's a big time saver. And I know there's a lot of people who might be using LawPay out there who don't have the integration with TimeSolv connected. And so they might be running the credit card payment through LawPay's portal, because you can record payments right through LawPay's portal, and this coming in here, recording it as a credit card payment and so on, then allocating the invoice. Well, that can all go away if you integrate LawPay with TimeSolv and use the client portal. But again, that's a webinar for another day. So let's just say that we're recording a check payment. You have a reference number, you want to record the amount of the payment, and then you're going to hit save. So let me find a sent invoice that we can walk through this on. I want to make sure I'm using one that has not been paid. It might be relatively clean. Actually, you know what? I'm going to create an invoice and send it, and that's going to make it even easier, I think. So I did some time entries earlier today for July 19 webinar client. I'm going to create an invoice here. There's my invoice for just under $5,000, and I'm going to go ahead and send it. Okay, so that invoice was sent out, and because my client is just such a wonderful client, I am going to, I already have received payment for it. So here's that sent invoice that I just sent. Now I'm going to want to record a payment for it, and let's say that they did, pay me that $4,950. So I'm going to click on the pay here. Now we don't pre-populate the amount because we don't necessarily know or assume that the client is going to pay you the exact amount that is due. As we all know, as we live in the real world here. So I'm going to go ahead and say it's, let's see, what was, make sure I had the amount correct. $4,950 is the amount. And obviously if I had the check in hand, I'd be able to read the check in hand and see that they're paying $4,950. This reference is a good field where you could record the check number. So you could say the check number is, 2319, whatever it might be. Any notes that you need to make here about this payment for whatever reason, if perhaps it's only half of the amount that's due, you can note that here, whatever you need to do to have notes for others that might be looking at this. Then I'm just going to hit save. And then you'll see down here, down below, you'll see the client and matter is listed here. It's showing me all allocatable payments, and in this case, in the last 30 days. And this is where, and we'll show you can do a lot with seeing the various payments that you have recorded in TimeSolv below this. In some ways, I think we should probably have a little bit more of a divider line here, because the bottom half of the screen really can show you a lot of information regardless of whether you're making a payment or credit up top here. But in this case, we have our client and matter that we've just recorded a payment for, but the invoice is still not going to show as being paid yet, because we haven't allocated it towards that specific invoice. So that's where the next step, and a step that I know a lot of people miss, is to hit this allocate link right over here in the far left, or excuse me, far right. And it's showing me that the amount due is $4,950. I have available funds to allocate of $4,950. So this one's going to be pretty easy. So I'm going to hit allocate here. But before I do, you should note the drop down arrow here. This drop down, if you click on it, will allow you to edit that payment. So it's going to come back up here and allow you to edit because you may have made a mistake. Perhaps you had the wrong number amount. It was actually an ACH payment, not a check, whatever it might be. So you can edit that, or you can simply just void the payment altogether like it didn't exist and just flush it out of the system and start over again if you'd like. So I'm going to click on allocate. And this is going to pop up this allocation window here. Now, by default, it's going to show you all matters for the client. In this case, I only have one matter, so it's only showing me that. But if you uncheck this box, it would only show you the specific matter that you made the payment for. And now it's very easy, and you can see that, and even if you delete this here, it's always going to fill in the payment amount as what the balance is. But up here is where you want to take a look at and understand that you have $49.50 is the amount due. You have available funds of $49.50. And then you can just simply hit allocate here. If you do have multiple invoices that need to be paid, you have the option to, if you clicked on allocate oldest first, and I'll go over, we'll find an invoice that has this function here. You can see how you could allocate the payment to the oldest invoice, which kind of makes sense if you want the one that is aged the most to get paid first if they've recorded a payment usually, or you can compute equal proportions of the payment to the various invoices that have an outstanding balance. That's not the case here. This is very easy. So I'm just going to hit allocate here. Oh, that's right. I deleted out the amount here. $49.50. I'm going to hit allocate because that's how much I want to allocate towards this invoice, invoice 281. I hit allocate. It's going to show me here everything that's happening for invoice 281. I'm no longer going to have any available funds. The invoice amount was this. The balance due was this. The payment amount is this, and so on. And the date that it happened, I hit save. Great. Now the funds have been allocated successfully. Now I could come in here and go show me allocated payments from the same client and matter. If I hit search, it's going to show me this actually didn't change at all. You know, if I did all here, that's going to show me I only have one payment here recorded for this one matter. But if you have to and reallocate that for whatever reason, you can certainly click on this and reallocate it. It's essentially going to tell you like, okay, delete the allocation, start over again. So you do have flexibility there. And more importantly, when you come back over here under invoices to sent, and we look at that sent invoice, now it shows as paid under balance. So let's see if I can find a bit of a messy one that has a lot of, I think this Best Buy, if I go to do this Best Buy test and I have it a balance of $110 due, but I know there's a lot of money that Best Buy owes me. So let's say they made a payment of $2,000 and I hit save, and now I can allocate it here. And if you notice, I have a lot of various matters for Best Buy, quite a few that have outstanding balances. So by default, it's showing all of these, but I just want to allocate it towards this specific matter. So I'm going to uncheck this box. Now it's only showing me invoices that are due that I still have outstanding balances on, just this one matter, the test matter for Best Buy. And this is where I have $2,000 available. I could allocate to the oldest first. And you could see it's going to allocate. I had $2,000. It can pay off these first two invoices here completely. And then the remainder amount will go to this invoice I have that's just under $5,000. Or I could compute equal proportions, and it's going to split it by equal proportion here to the invoice that it's due. Okay, so you can do a couple of things there with it. You can uncheck the box here. You can allocate to the oldest first and do that, or we can, if we uncheck this, you could say no, you know, I want to take that out, and I just want to do 2,000 to that one, the one that's for $4,000, let's say. Okay. And then once you do that, and you say I'm going to allocate it to this one only, then you hit allocate, you hit save, and now you have this payment. There's no longer any available funds. Okay, but this payment was for the amount of $2,000. We don't have $2,000 available anymore because we've already allocated it to an invoice. All right, so this is a make sure that you are allocating payments to invoices. If you have any questions, we're here to help you with it. but most importantly, it's going to make sure that your accounts receivable, we have reports you can run on the accounts receivable of what invoices are outstanding. What I like to show people is use this sent invoice screen as your running AR report, simply by sorting by the balance. If I click on it once, it's going to show me my paid invoices first. If I click on it again, it's going to reverse the order and show me the most or the biggest outstanding balance that I have by dollar amount, and it puts these paid ones down below. Now you know of all the invoices that I've sent since May 1st, who's paid, who hasn't. Then you can start getting after it to track down these payments and figure out why the invoices haven't been paid. But I think this screen is a great way to be your working AR list. And again, you can search, however many, far back as you want. You could search by invoices sent by, if you're a firm that it's the responsibility of each responsible professional to send invoices and track collection. You could search by that. You have several options here, whether it's fixed fee, that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of ways to sort this sent invoice screen, but more importantly, this is the way you can determine your running AR. All right, any questions on that right now? If not, I'm going to move on to topic number 2. And we're going to talk about abbreviations, which I think is one of the most fun features of TimeSolv. And that is the ability to not have to laboriously and boringly retype the same description for a time entry and expense entry over and over and over again. Hopefully you guys are all taking wonderful advantage of this feature. So let's take a look at it real quick. If you're not aware of it, when you're making a time entry and you go to put in the description here of the entry you're creating, you can use short 2 to 3 letter abbreviations that will expand out the text. And we don't expect everyone to remember. Well, first of all, before I get into that, let me show you where you create these. So under your account and settings, you have a tab called abbreviations. So account, settings, abbreviations. Here's where you can create the abbreviations for your company, and you can create as many as you possibly want. You just simply enter the phrase that you want to be part of the abbreviation, you want to be expanded to, and what the abbreviation is going to be. So in this case, and you can do up to 2,000 characters, which is pretty big. If you notice, this is a pretty long paragraph here, and that's only 1/4 of the space that you have to use. And this abbreviation is just TRT. And then I can say it's going to be an active abbreviation. And you can have, again, we recommend it's 2 to 3 letter abbreviations that you can use, okay? Then to implement them, again, you go back to the time entry screen. And as I was saying, we don't expect people at the firm, the timekeepers, the people who are making these time entries, to remember all the abbreviations that may have been created. So we do have a cheat sheet here. If you hover over this little icon, this little paper icon, you'll see all the abbreviations so you can remember what they are. Oh yeah, there's a filing fee abbreviation. So I'm going to simply hit FF space, and there it is. You can combine abbreviations, so you don't have to only do one per description. So if I want to do RE, regarding, there it is. Regarding CC, conference call with client to discuss matter, whatever it might be. So you can add on whatever you want it to be. But it's simply typing that 2 to 3 letter abbreviation, hitting the space bar, and it's going to expand that text. You can do that here. You can do that for your expense entries as well. When describing the expense entries, same exact abbreviation cheat sheet. This little, it is to, if you want to replace the abbreviations. Oops. It's not working for me here. All right, I'm going to skip that part. The other thing that I want to mention is that while you may be aware of the full firm abbreviations, you can also create your own custom abbreviations for just yourself. When you go into professionals here and you click on, I'm going to click on my own name here, Scott Laidlaw, it's my dummy account. I have an abbreviations tab. Every professional has an abbreviations tab. Benny Barnes does, everyone does. This is where you can create your own unique abbreviations that are only available to you. So you click on the name of the professional. As you can see, as a full admin, you could create abbreviations for all of your various timekeepers if you want. Go to the abbreviations tab. It's going to show you the firm-wide abbreviations, but here's where you can create personal abbreviations that only are available to you when you're logged in. So I always push that the beauty of having abbreviations for description, other than the obvious fact that it makes it much faster to enter a description for something that you do quite often, time entries that you're creating quite frequently. More importantly, I think, well, maybe not more importantly, but just as importantly, it allows you to create a uniform language within your firm so that if you have two different timekeepers creating time entries and work for the same matter, they are describing perhaps similar work that they've done in the exact same way. So it lessens the confusion that a client might have when looking at the invoice, looking at the description of time entries, and it looks to them like, wait a minute, I'm reading that, Scott Laidlaw did a conference call, blah, 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 but it shows me Doug Cosby. This looks like a conference call too, but it's written differently. That eliminates that confusion and the idea of questioning the time entry descriptions if you create this uniform language within the firm. And of course, having your personal abbreviations, if you're the one, you're the go-to person at the firm who deals with, real estate tax law, whatever it might be, I don't know, and you're the one who's creating all those abbreviations, all those time entries quite frequently, then maybe you don't need to have a firm-wide abbreviation. So you have the ones that you use quite often. So you create those personal abbreviations. The beauty of the abbreviations is it's also available in the TimeSync widget tool that we have. I'm going to bring that up right now. I hope, again, hopefully everyone has downloaded and is using the TimeSync widget so that they don't need to have a window browser open when making time entries. When you click on the descriptions here, you'll notice when you go to type the description, you'll see your abbreviations down here. And yes, they will work just like, this is the cheat sheet, just like before. So if I hit CC and space, it's going to expand out just like I was doing a regular time entry on screen. Same thing with our mobile app. You have the same ability to see the abbreviations and select them so you don't have to retype. It's even more important or even more useful, I think, with the mobile app because you don't run into fat thumb syndrome where you're making typos as you're creating your time entries on your mobile device. Okay, so that is how and why we'd want to use abbreviations. So let's move on to our next tip. So QuickBooks Online Sync Tool update. There was QuickBooks Online essentially changed the way they authenticate integration partners with their particular tool. So what that meant is we had to build a new way in which we authenticate ourselves with them. I won't get you into the boring details because frankly, I don't know the boring details. But the issue is that since we released this update around the week of July 4th, if you use QuickBooks Online Sync Tool and you go to log into the Sync Tool itself, you're going to see an error called Authentication Failed. Please log into the TimeSolv web app to reconnect. This is from the blog post we did about this. So you're going to see this field on the TimeSync tool. I don't have TimeSync tool, or excuse me, QuickBooks Sync tool. I don't have that on my computer. I don't have QuickBooks. TimeSolv is smart. They don't let the marketing people deal with accounting software. So I can only show you a screenshot of what you'll be seeing when you try to log in the QuickBooks Online Sync. And it's going to ask you to please log into the TimeSolv web app and reconnect. So it's actually a fairly simple fix to this. It's just a matter of knowing what to do. All you have to do is come into under account over here to integrations. And then this is where we have our QuickBooks integration here, where you have the QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online. If you've already connected to QuickBooks Online, it's going to show you that you are connected. You'll want to hit the disconnect button, if you will, disconnect link, and then connect to QuickBooks here again. So you'll click, you'll see that this green button and connect to QuickBooks. You'll get to the QuickBooks Online screen and you'll log in with your username and password. You'll hit sign in, and then it'll bring you to a screen to show you the companies that you have in your QuickBooks Online, which one you want to associate with to TimeSolv. And I'm sure there's just one company, but you'll know which company to do. So essentially, it's just reconnecting your QuickBooks Online to TimeSolv if you receive that error. Then you'll be good to go. It's a one-time thing, and you're done. So we've been getting some feedback from support. We sent this out as the tip of the week a couple weeks ago, but some people are still, even today, a firm was saying, hey, I'm getting an error. I'm trying to log into QuickBooks Online. What's happening? And so that's just be aware that that's the issue, that you just have to reconnect. It was out of our hands. It was something QuickBooks Online integration made us do to reconnect. So simple, easy fix if that affects you. So that was fast, right? So let's go into tip number 4. Last one is about enabling two-factor authentication. We just allowed your TimeSolv account to enable two-factor authentication. What does that mean? A lot of you may have already be using this with other software. This is the process where when you go to log into an account, before you gain full access to it, it will send a time-sensitive PIN code, in other words, a PIN code that's going to expire, to another device or account of yours, either via email or text message is the other way, the common way to do it. And so that's why you essentially are using your login password, but then you're authenticating yourself in a second way on another device. It's called two-factor authentication. So we just created that, allowed you to turn that on in TimeSolv. So let me show you where to do that. This was just released last week. You'll go under your account and settings. And under the general tab where you land, about 2/3 of the way down, there's a new row here called two-factor authentication. By default, it's going to be disabled. You can enable it so that every time anyone is, and this, let me back up. When you enable two-factor authentication, you're enabling it for every user with your TimeSolv account. It is not something that some users can turn on and some users can turn off. It's either you all are using two-factor authentication or you all are not using two-factor authentication with your TimeSolv account. So important note there. So you can enable it to every time anyone has to log in, they're going to receive an email, in our case, with a special PIN code that expires after 5 minutes in order for them to log in to TimeSolv. You can make it be a daily occurrence. So essentially the first time they log in each day of using TimeSolv, weekly or monthly. So how exactly does it work? So I'm going to say every login. I'm going to hit save. Now I'm going to log out of my account. And I'm going to log back in. And instead of being brought to TimeSolv, I'm brought to this page. It says two-factor authentication. Enter the one-time PIN code sent to your registered email. This is the email that you entered when you created yourself as a professional or as an admin. I've already received the email. I just got it just now. So that's how fast you're going to get that email. Here it is right here. So it was what, about 5 seconds, 10 seconds before that email came through. So it is lightning quick. So you'll receive an email to the account in which you registered for, and it'll say, this is your special PIN code and it's going to expire in 5 minutes. You can just simply select this PIN code. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to paste it, hit verify, and I'm in. So again, it's just another layer of security that a lot of people are concerned about. It is a way to really defend yourself against any potential security breaches. It was interesting. One of our head lead developers was at a cybersecurity conference last week, and part of his report back, and I thought this was really interesting way of putting it. He said, hacking into an account is very difficult. Actually like programming your way into it. What's much easier, and what a lot of cyber criminals will do, is they'll find ways to trick people into giving up their username and password to accounts. That's the way a lot of hackers get into accounts, is through all the various methods that we are familiar with, but a lot of people are still susceptible to that. So this is a way to throw up an extra layer of security by enabling that two-factor authentication. Because then if somebody, for whatever reason, gets your username and password and are trying to log into TimeSolv, they can't, because unless they have access as well to your email, in which case you're really screwed, I guess, to do the two-factor authentication. So that's an important feature that we just turned on. And I encourage everyone to enable it to one degree or another. As you can see, we do allow you, from being completely disabled to being not as intrusive by only requesting the two-factor authentication on a monthly basis, down to a weekly, daily, or every single time you log in. Okay, well, that is going to wrap up all of the items that I wanted to show you today. Again, as always, if you have any questions that you think of as soon as I get done with this with this webinar, please email us at support@timesolv.com. You can give us a call, 1-800-715-1284, and it's actually extension 2 for support. And we do have a lot of kind of fun things we're going to be introducing this summer. We are just getting into the latter stages of, building the integration with Office 365 that will allow you to create a time entry directly from your email account. So as you're creating emails, writing emails, and you need to track the time on that work, you can start a timer right within your Office Outlook, whether it's Outlook Desktop or you're logged in through Outlook.com, Office 365. Really exciting to have that coming out. Eventually, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm amongst friends here, right? I know eventually one of the things that we'd like to do with the integration, this is going to be phase 2, so I'm not going to make any promises to when it would be available, is that same thing with your Outlook calendar. If you use Office 365 for your calendaring, that eventually you'd have the ability, when you create a calendar event, to determine if you want to automatically have that calendar event become a time entry. And of course, you would be able to associate it to a specific client and matter. So if you have on your calendar that you're going to go meet your client for 1 hour, as you create that event, you could designate that this is going to then automatically become a time entry for that client and matter, and it'll show up as a time entry in TimeSolv, which I think is a really impactful potential tool. But again, I'm not going to make any promises as to when that particular feature will be out. I know phase 1 is going to allow you to create time entries directly from your Outlook that you use for Office 365. Gmail, if you're a Gmail user, I believe is something that we will be looking at down the road. We did do a survey of our existing clients back earlier. You probably got the email maybe 4 or 5 months ago, asking what email and calendar system you use, Outlook or Gmail or other. It seems that for most people, it's those two are the major ones, Gmail or Outlook. And overwhelmingly, the majority of the people came back saying they are using Outlook and Office products essentially to run their email and calendar. So that's why we pivoted that direction on building an integration. So fun and exciting times of things coming up with TimeSolv. Okay, well, I'm going to end the webinar here. I want to thank everyone for attending. Don't have any questions that have come through, it looks like. So hopefully everyone is up to speed on the items that I ran over. We will do this again on the second Wednesday of August. We're only The reason we did it on the third Wednesday was because I was out of town last week. So it looks like August 14th, Wednesday, August 14th at 1 o'clock Eastern time is when we will be doing this again, and we'll talk about other interesting new things. And I will be sending a recording to those of you that attended the webinar. So hope everyone has a great rest of the week. Stay cool. I know it's getting pretty darn hot in most places in the country, and we'll talk to you in August. So take care, everybody.